A very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on a day-long visit to Gujarat today to hold joint roadshow in Ahmedabad. Both leaders to inaugurate new campus of iCreate Center to nurture entrepreneurs. Israeli Prime Minister hails Prime Minister Modi's efforts in improving ease of doing business. In his address at the geopolitical conference RAISINA Dialogue, says the main job of both countries is to cut red tape to encourage businesses. Five-judge Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court, headed by Chief Justice of India, to begin hearing on 8 crucial cases, including challenge to the constitutional validity of Aadhaar Act today. CJI reaches out to 4 dissenting senior judges of the Apex Court as well. Record number of 1.75 lakh Muslims to undertake Hajj pilgrimage from India this year. Government says that in line with Supreme Court's order, there will be no subsidy for pilgrims from this year. And India, 252 runs away from a win on the 5th and final day of the second test against South Africa at the Centurion, aimed to level the 3-match series that hosts lead 1-0. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah Netanyahu will visit Gujarat today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will welcome the Israeli Prime Minister in Ahmedabad. The two Prime Ministers will then hold a roadshow on the 8-kilometer stretch from the airport to Sabarmati Ashram. Prime Minister Modi and Netanyahu will pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi at Sabarmati Ashram. In fact, both the Prime Ministers will then inaugurate the newly built iCreate Center at Deodhulera village in Ahmedabad and dedicate it to the nation. Formally launched in 2011 by Narendra Modi when he was the Gujarat Chief Minister, iCreate was set up to nurture entrepreneurs by providing them with funds, space, mentors and other facilities. The two Prime Ministers will also recognize and award 38 entrepreneurial projects from the two countries and interact with innovators and startup CEOs. The visiting Israeli Prime Minister will present Prime Minister Modi with a special gift, a water desalinization and purification jeep, which the two leaders rode on Israel's Olga beach last year. There will be a live demonstration of desalinization of the seawater that the two Prime Ministers will witness through video conferencing from the iCreate Center. The two leaders will also visit the Center of Excellence for Vegetables at Vadrad in Banaskantha district, where they will be briefed on work plan of the center. They will then inaugurate the Center of Excellence for Date Palms at Kukama in Kutch district through a video link. The two Prime Ministers will also interact with farmers. Prime Minister Netanyahu will later depart for Mumbai. And staying with the visit, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hailed Prime Minister Modi's efforts in improving the ease of doing business in the country. He also said that he believed in India and its potential. Inaugurating the 3rd edition of the geopolitical conference RAISINA Dialogue in the national capital on Tuesday, Benjamin Netanyahu stressed upon the need for greater cooperation between the two nations. He further added that the main job of both India and Israel is to cut bureaucratic delays. On Indo-Israel ties, Netanyahu said that the alliance of democracies is important to secure a common future and that the possibilities are endless. The annual flagship 3-day conference was also attended by Prime Minister Modi and External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj. The theme of the dialogue this year was managing disruptive transitions, ideas, institutions and idioms. Netanyahu is on a 6-day visit to India.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
The weak don't survive. The strong survive. You make peace with the strong. You make alliances with the strong. You're able to maintain peace by being strong. And therefore, the first requirement of Israel from the time of our first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, was to achieve the minimal strength that is required to assure our existence. Now, what is the source of strength? Various questions arise about what is the nature of power. There's soft power, there's hard power. I like soft power. Hard power is often better. What does it mean? What does it mean to have power? Well, the first prerequisite is military power. You need F-35s, you need submarines, you need interceptors, you need cyber, you need intelligence. If you want to have economic power, you must reduce taxes, simplify taxes, and you must cut bureaucracy. Government can facilitate economic growth. Government can block economic growth. In our cases, Israel and India, we don't have any bureaucracy to contend with. You know that. So a main job of the leaders of both India and Israel is to reduce this bureaucracy, to cut it, as I call it, with a machete, with an axe, so that the firms can go on with their business of doing business. This gives strength. We've done this in Israel.
Well, today, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will deliver the plenary address at the RAISINA dialogue. Army Chief General Bipin Rawat and Navy Chief Admiral Sunil Lamba will also address the session, along with Admiral Harry Harris, Commander of the US Pacific Command, and General Chris Deverill, Joint Forces Commander of the UK, will be tracking all those developments there. Meanwhile, in other national news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the commencement of work of an oil refinery in Rajasthan's Barmer district on Tuesday. The project, costing over 43,000 crore rupees, is likely to be completed by 2021. At the inauguration, the Prime Minister said that the previous regime in the state had just deceived people by laying foundation stones for projects, doing nothing for the poor.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday inaugurated the commencement of work for the first oil refinery in Rajasthan's Barmer district. The project, that is estimated to cost 43,129 crore rupees, will be the first Indian greenfield refinery designed to produce BS6 grade fuel. Addressing the public at the launch, the Prime Minister urged the people to aim towards creating a new India by 2022.
कि 2022 तक इस रिफाइनरी का कार्यारंभ कर देंगे। मुझे विश्वास है ये संकल्प सिद्धि बन करके रहेगा और जब देश आजादी के 75 साल मनाता होगा तब यहां से देश को नई ऊर्जा मिलना प्रारंभ हो जाएगा।
Taking pot shots at the previous Congress government in the state, Modi said drought and Congress travel hand in hand in the state.
कि राजस्थान में कांग्रेस और अकाल ये जुड़वा भाई है। जहां कांग्रेस जाएगी वहां अकाल साथ साथ जाता है। और वसुंधरा जी के भाग्य में लिखा हुआ है, जब भी उनको सेवा करने का मौका मिला, इस सूखी धरती को पानी मिलता रहा।
The refinery project is a joint venture between Hindustan Petroleum Corporation and Rajasthan government. With a 9 million ton per annum capacity, it will be the biggest refinery ahead of HPCL refinery in Mumbai that has a capacity of 7.5 million tons per annum and Visakhapatnam that has an 8.3 million ton capacity. On completion by 2021, the refinery cum petrochemical complex will create 40,000 indirect employment opportunities during peak construction period and 10,000 direct jobs. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Pakistani troops violated ceasefire yet again at the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir on Tuesday evening. An army captain was injured as Pakistani army resorted to heavy firing at the Indian posts along the LOC at Poonch in Jammu and Kashmir. The Indian troops retaliated and the exchange of fire continued till late night on Tuesday. The latest ceasefire violation came a day after 7 Pakistani army men, including a major, were killed and 4 others injured in retaliatory action by the Indian army in Poonch. On Monday, authorities had suspended the cross-LOC bus service between Chakandabag and Rawalakot following heightened tension on the LOC. Meanwhile, Home Minister Rajnath on Tuesday reviewed the security situation in the northeastern states where insurgency-related incidents have gone down substantially. According to official data, the security situation in the region has improved and insurgency-related incidents have gone down by 85% in 2017 as compared to 2000. There were 308 insurgency-related incidents last year in the northeastern states, the lowest since 1997. The death toll of security personnel and civilians was also the lowest last year, when 12 security forces personnel and 37 civilians were killed. Data also shows that no insurgency-related incident was reported from Tripura and Mizoram last year. The review meeting was attended by Minister of State for Home Affairs Kiren Rijiju, Home Secretary Rajiv Gauba and other senior officials of the ministry. The meeting comes at a time when assembly polls are due in 3 northeastern states, Meghalaya, Tripura and Nagaland, in February-March. Hearings on 8 crucial cases, including the one challenging the constitutional validity of the Aadhaar Act, will commence in the Supreme Court from today. The hearing will begin before the Supreme Court's 5-judge constitution bench headed by the Chief Justice of India. The Supreme Court had earlier announced the composition of the 5-judge constitution bench to hear the major cases. The bench comprises Justices A.K. Sikri, A.M. Khanwilkar, D.Y. Chandrachud and Ashok Bhushan besides the Chief Justice. Apart from Aadhaar, the other issues include cases challenging the 2013 Apex Court judgment recriminalizing gay sex between consenting adults. Also hearing on the ban of the entry of women between 10 to 50 years of age in Kerala's Sabrimala temple and whether a Parsi woman would lose her religious identity if she marries a man from a different religion will be conducted. Another contentious matter relates to the challenge of the validity of a penal law on adultery, which only punishes a married man for having an extramarital sexual relationship with a woman married to someone else. The other issues to be dealt with by the Constitution Bench include the pleas, which have raised a question as to when will a lawmaker facing criminal trial stand disqualified. In the first signs of a thaw in the ongoing crisis in the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra, reached out to the 4 dissenting judges on Tuesday. Highly placed sources in the Apex Court said that the Chief Justice met Justices J. Chelameshwar, Ranjan Gogoi, M.B. Lokar and Kurian Joseph for about 15 minutes before normal work of the day started. CJI Mishra reportedly called the meeting himself, which will continue on Wednesday as issues raised at Tuesday's meeting remained unresolved. Details about what transpired during the meeting are not yet known. Earlier in the day, Attorney General K.K. Venugopal had expressed hope that the crisis would be settled fully in 2 to 3 days. The Supreme Court Bar Association President Vikas Singh also exuded confidence that there was a likelihood of the crisis being resolved by the end of this week. There will be no subsidy for Hajj from this year. Minority Affairs Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi made the announcement on Tuesday. Naqvi said that the move to abolish the subsidy for Hajj pilgrims was in accordance with the Supreme Court order. Naqvi told the media that despite the subsidy withdrawal, a record number of 1.75 lakh Muslims will undertake the pilgrimage this year from India. He also said that the Saudi Arabian government has, in principle, agreed to allow Hajj journey from India by ships. Officials of the 2 countries will sit together to finalize the modalities.
जो हज सब्सिडी थी उस हज सब्सिडी का जो समाज के शैक्षणिक सशक्तिकरण में इस्तेमाल होगा, ख़ास तौर से लड़कियों, बच्चियों के, महिलाओं के शैक्षणिक एजुकेशनल एम्पावरमेंट के लिए उसका इस्तेमाल किया जाएगा, ताकि जो है वो जो शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में एक पिछड़ा हुआ है समाज, उस शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में उसको बराबरी का एहसास कराया जा सके, उसका सशक्तिकरण कराया जा सके.
All right, with that, a quick break here. Up next, we'll get you the top international stories.
A deadline of March 31st, 2018 has been set to link your Aadhaar with the bank accounts. Now, when you have these virtual IDs and for which you have a deadline of June, is this deadline going to change in any way?
The government has always been very, accommodative. If I were to decide that, maybe I could have given you some definitive answer.
Do you have a number of insecurities when it comes to the data breaches which have come across? Then you recently had a Tribune case.
Aadhaar number is not a secret information because Aadhaar number is in your ID card and you are supposed to be giving your ID card to everywhere, wherever it is demanded.
Now, about 8 years later, we are talking about firewalls like virtual IDs, we are talking about facial recognition. Isn't this something which could have been planned much earlier?
Actually, we had thought about it in 2009-10 at that time. But then that time, our own internal view was that, at this point of time, it will perhaps create more confusion.
Watch to the point with Unique Identification Authority of India CEO, Dr. Ajay Bhushan Pandey on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. In more national news, institutions with NAAC grade of A+ and A++ will soon be able to offer 3-year degree programs through online mode, and these will be treated at par with regular courses. The HRD Ministry is formulating guidelines for the 3-year degree programs to be provided via online mode. The rules and guidelines for the same would be notified by next month. HRD Minister Prakash Javadekar said that online education will also help increase enrollment ratio in the country. At the 65th meeting of the Central Advisory Board of Education, it was also resolved that necessary steps will be taken to ensure that no deserving student should be denied opportunity to have higher education for lack of means.
टॉप इंस्टीट्यूट्स है, टॉप विश्वविद्यालय है, ऐसे एक 10% विश्वविद्यालय जो गुणवत्तापूर्ण है, उनको ये परमिशन देंगे कि ओपन डिस्टेंस लर्निंग और ऑनलाइन लर्निंग, इसके दोनों के रेगुलेशंस, एक ओडीएल के रिवाइज रेगुलेशंस है और ऑनलाइन के पहली दफ़ा रेगुलेशंस बन रहे हैं, तो उसके द्वारा नॉन टेक्निकल कोर्सेज की शिक्षा छात्रों को या बाकी भी कर्मचारियों को, व्यवसायियों को, किसी को भी, नागरिक को ये मिलेगी। जैसे हमारा स्वयं पोर्टल है, वो इंडिया का ओन मुक्स है, ओपन लर्निंग रिसोर्सेस है, वो सभी दुनिया में पॉपुलर हो रहे हैं और ऐसा ही यहाँ भी होगा। तो ये ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन की एक नई सुविधा नए रेगुलेशन के साथ आएगी और उससे बहुत अच्छा परिणाम होगा।
And now let's take a look at what else is expected to make news through the day ahead. President Ramnath Kovind will confer the Sangeet Natak Academy Fellowships and Sangeet Natak Academy Awards for 2016 to an eminent group of musicians, dancers and theatre artists today. The function will be held at Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. The 4 fellowships or Academy Ratnas this year will be conferred on Arvind Parekh, R. Vedavali, Ram Gopal Bajaj and Sunil Kothari. Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will fly a supersonic fighter plane Sukhoi 30 MKI at Jodhpur Air Force Station today. She will be the first Defence Minister to fly the fighter aircraft at the Jodhpur Air Base. Sitharaman earlier visited INS Vikramaditya last week for witnessing the naval operations and maritime prowess of the Indian Navy. A group of ministers headed by Bihar Deputy Chief Minister Sushil Kumar Modi will meet today to look into technical issues faced by GSTN. This will be the 6th meeting of the group of ministers after being set up in September 2017. As per sources, the panel is likely to take stock of the functioning of GSTN and also review the tasks assigned to IT major Infosys for streamlining user experience on the portal. Now, comprehensive policy to boost the country's agriculture exports is on the anvil. The Commerce and Industry Ministry will soon bring in a policy framework for facilitating access to global markets for Indian agriculture produce. The policy will focus on identifying market products involving states in a bid to boost agri-exports. This move would also help serve the government's objective of doubling farmers' income by 2022.
The Commerce Ministry is working on a draft agriculture export policy that will aim to boost outward shipments. All important elements such as logistics, certification and traceability of items would be part of the new policy.
एग्री एक्सपोर्ट पॉलिसी में कैसे हम लोग प्रोसेसिंग को, वैल्यू एडिशन को बढ़ावा दें, कैसे एक स्टेबल एक्सपोर्ट इंपोर्ट पॉलिसी को बढ़ावा दें, कैसे हमारे जो ऑटोनोमस बॉडीज़ हैं, एपिडा, एम्पिडा, स्पाइस बोर्ड, टी बोर्ड, ये सब एक्सपोर्टर के साथ काम करें, कैसे हम लोग स्टेट्स को ज़्यादा इन्वॉल्व करें एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन एक्टिविटीज़ में.
The global export market for agriculture produce is worth about $1,600 billion. India is second in agriculture production in the world, but is ranked 8th in exports, with agri-exports accounting for just 10% of the country's total exports. India mainly exports tea, coffee, rice, cereals, tobacco, spices, cashew, oil meals, fruits and vegetables, and marine products.
We need to evolve our products in terms of global taste, global formulas, global packaging, and push them hard onto the retail chains.
Agricultural exports from grew 18% to $21 billion in the April-October period in 2017-18 compared to just 5% in 2016-17. The policy works well with the government's aim to double farmers' income by 2022. Crop diversification, focus on allied sectors, food processing and tapping global markets are among the steps the government is taking to meet this target. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to international news, and the 20-nation meeting on North Korea, co-hosted by the US and Canada, saw foreign ministers agreeing to continue sanctions pressure on Pyongyang. US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said at the gathering in Vancouver that the US-led pressure campaign on North Korea was having an effect. He credited the efforts with persuading North Korea to talk to South Korea about participating in the Olympic Games, which start next month. Summit diplomats met in private sessions throughout Tuesday, discussing further sanctions, a non-proliferation policy, and what steps should be taken next. India was represented by High Commissioner to Canada, Vikas Swarup. Along with the 20 nations represented at the meeting, the diplomatic approach has been favoured by Russia and China as well as the proper way to ask North Korea to abandon its nuclear weapons program.
The object of negotiations, if and when we get there, is the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea. All nations here today are united on that goal. Let me be clear, we will not allow North Korea to drive a wedge through our resolve or our solidarity. We reject a freeze-for-freeze approach in which legitimate defensive military exercises are placed on the same level of equivalency as the DPRK's unlawful actions. The pressure campaign will continue until North Korea takes decisive steps to denuclearize.
And here are more international news updates in World Wrap. The United States will give the UN $60 million in aid for Palestinian refugees, but withhold a further $65 million for now. The U.S. State Department made the announcement on Tuesday as the Trump administration carried out a threat it made 2 weeks ago to cut funding. While U.S. officials did not link the decision to Trump's tweet, they made a point often advanced by the president by saying that the United States had been UNRWA's single largest donor for decades and demanded other nations to do more. The war in Yemen has killed or injured more than 5,000 children and left another 400,000 severely malnourished and fighting for their lives. The UNICEF representative to Yemen said that the UN task force has reported 5,000 confirmed deaths in Yemen since the conflict escalated in March 2015. Yemen is facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis, where 8.3 million people are entirely dependent on external food aid. European Union Council President Donald Tusk has urged Britain to change its mind about leaving the bloc next year. Tusk made the remarks at the European Parliament's plenary session in Strasbourg in France in light of a debate over whether to hold a second referendum on Brexit in the UK. Both sides concluded the first stage of Brexit negotiations in 2017, and they're expected to continue discussing a range of topics, including arrangements for the transition period and trade agreements in the following stage. The Parliament of Catalonia will return to business today with the start of a new session after the snapped December elections. It is expected to appoint a new president and bureau, but uncertainty hangs over the proceedings as the pro-independence parliamentary majority is threatened by the ongoing imprisonment and exile of several parliamentarians. The scenario is further complicated by the fact that former President Carles Puigdemont is in self-imposed exile in Brussels and faces arrest if he returns to Spain. Sports now, and in cricket, chasing a victory target of 287, India will resume the second innings of the second test against South Africa at 35 for 3 on the 5th day today. India need 252 runs to win the second test against South Africa to level the series. Batsmen Cheteshwar Pujara on 11 and Parthiv Patel on 5 were at the crease when play ended on Tuesday. South Africa is leading the three-test series 1-0 as they won the first test in Cape Town by 72 runs. The match is scheduled to start at 1:30 p.m. India time. An Indian men's hockey team will face Japan in their opening match of the Four Nations Invitational Tournament in New Zealand's Tauranga today. Against Japan, India has a good record as they had begun their successful outing in the Men's Asia Cup last year with a 5-1 win. The team will be led by midfielder Manpreet Singh, while Chinglen Singh Kangujam will shoulder the responsibility of being a vice-captain. India will also play the Belgium and host New Zealand in two separate 5-day series. And in news from the first Grand Slam tournament of the year, the Australian Open, Belarusian player Aryna Sabalenka lost to Australian number 1 Ashley Barty 7-6, 4-6, 4-6 in the first round. Barty will now face Camilla Giorgi of Italy. While in the men's singles match, defending champion Roger Federer of Switzerland beat Slovenian Alaz Bedin in his opening match. Federer defeated Bedin 6-3, 6-4, 6-3. He will next face Germany's Jan-Lennard Struff on Thursday. In another match, Novak Djokovic beat American Donald Young 6-1, 6-2, 6-4 on his return to the Grand Slam stage. While world number 4, Alexander Zverev beat Italy's Thomas Fabiano 6-1, 7-6, 7-5 in the first round. And that's all we could pack in on the breakfast news. Have a good day ahead.